felt a little bad about myself all weekend.
Why? Because you're around a billionaire?
It's not that. I'm used to being around people who have more money. I just feel like...
Your hair?
I feel like I don't know. I just wish I could start a comedy club somewhere, but then I don't...
That's not for you. You in a comedy club?
I'm not good at details, huh?
We got money stolen from us and you had no clue till I told you. You want to run a comedy store?
If you haven't heard, podcasts are slowly dying, some quicker than others. And if there was ever going to be a canary in the coal mine, this is definitely it. There is so much going on here that I've waited a few days to let all of it sink in and get as much information as possible. I know a whole bunch of you have been emailing me asking what my thoughts are on this scandal, so here it is. But wait, this isn't going to be what you may have thought, because I'm not so interested in what happened. I'm more interested in why it happened, and that's what I haven't seen yet. A bunch of channels have already covered this and gone through the details, but I haven't seen anyone explain why this happened, and that's what I'm going to do, so you better stick around. But first, a quick shout out to my ground level crew as per usual. We're almost at 10,000 subs. If you haven't already subscribed, get on board because we are the fastest growing rebellion on YouTube. And just a quick reminder that all clips used in this video are protected by the Fair Use Doctrine, safeguarded by Title 17 of the United States Code. Now, what the actual fuck is going on here? These companies kind of like marketing or advertising agencies, and they pull together a bunch of podcasts and they match them with advertisers who are willing to pay good money to have podcasters do ad reads for them. Basically like a middleman clipping the ticket for putting the advertiser and the podcaster together. And the idea is that if you're a podcaster, you can just focus on making good podcasts, more on that a little later. And if you're a company wanting to advertise your products or services, you don't have to run around finding podcasters to plug your ads for you. But here's the problem. The advertiser doesn't actually have an agreement with the podcaster. They have an agreement with the middleman, and then the middleman has a separate agreement with the podcaster. So all the money flows through the middleman. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out how this would end. Apparently, according to Theo Von, the middleman ended up keeping more and more of the ad revenue for himself and gave less and less to the actual podcasters who were doing the ad reads. 'Cause money's cool, even when it's not yours. As you can imagine, Theo told these cats to fuck off and he moved on, but it didn't end there. Wow, okay, so let me break this down. Based off what Theo's saying, another company called Podcast One, which is another ad-based podcast network, was basically trying to buy Kast Media. In effect, this would mean bringing all of that Callen guy's podcast clients under the Podcast One umbrella to form one massive company. And so apparently, again, this is according to Theo, they tried to offer those podcasters who were owed money by Kast Media a new deal where they would receive some of the money they were owed in the form of shares in Podcast One, who just went public on the stock exchange, as part of a deal to get those podcasters over to Podcast One. But Theo said he didn't take that deal because it sounded dodgy as fuck. And, well, take a look at their share price since going public. Whoops. But wait. Take a wild guess who did take that deal.
And then there was talk of him selling his company to Podcast One. And I said, where is that deal? And I heard a couple of things and I hung up the phone. I called you and I said, we're not going to see our money and that sale's not going to go through. It doesn't make any sense. But I just stopped listening.
But I listened to Jocko and I went, well, good.
Yeah, the dog. Then we got a dog with a bone
1.6 million? Good.
Yeah. And then we got he took extreme ownership.
1.6? Good.
Yes.
Did no one tell him? Fuck, sorry. Where were we?
Brennan spoke to, and I'll let you speak on this more. Brennan spoke to a number of agencies and the company that gave us the best deal when we were out this money was a company called Podcast One. Podcast One has been the agents of a lot of the people that we know, and they've been very happy with them.
Adam Carolla,
Dr. Drew, etc. They've been in business a long time. From what I can tell, have a very good reputation. And
Prince
they gave us the best deal, and we went with that because I was not in a position, neither was Brennan, to say, "Oh well, we'll just write that off."
Oh no, we were scared.
Now.
Okay, let me be serious for a second. I don't know the details of the deal they made with Podcast One. All I'm going off is what these guys are saying publicly, and in all honesty, it's a pretty shit situation. I probably shouldn't be laughing at them. They deserve to get paid just like the rest of us, and I hope they somehow get their money back. Especially Theo Von. I think he's a pretty genuine guy, and he's got balls for coming out and calling these cats out publicly.
You fuck with the wrong rat, Callen.
But look, at the beginning of the video, I said that I was more interested in understanding why this happened rather than just looking at what happened. I actually wasn't going to make a video about this because it's not really something that I give a shit about, but last night I was lying in bed and I couldn't sleep, so I rolled over and I put the latest episode of The Fighter and the Kid on to knock me the fuck out, and there was something Brian Callen said that made me stop, rewind, and listen to it again. And then again. And it was in that moment I had this realization, and all the pieces of the puzzle came together for me.
So at the end of the day, I called Colin, and I'm just going to tell you what the conversation was with Colin. Essentially, I started talking to him, and I stopped him, and I said, "Colin, it sounds like you got in over your skis. There was a lull in advertising revenue, and you started using our money." At this point, I thought it was just us. That was for me. You started using our money to pay your payroll. And he said that's basically what happened.
Now, like myself, some of you in the comments have been calling out the downfall of podcasting for a while. I like to call it the post-saturation point, where we just have so many fucking podcasts that there aren't enough hours in the day for people to listen to them. Listening to podcasts is basically what I do for a living now, and even I struggle to keep up with even just a handful of them each week. There is so much content being pushed out by a growing amount of podcasts that a lot of them that were successful a few years ago are basically just tanking now. I mean, just look at what happened with Spotify. Off the back of signing JRE, they spent millions of dollars making exclusive deals with podcasters, only to recently admit that they overspent and they're not getting the return they expected, and basically just cancelled or didn't renew a whole bunch of contracts. Shout out to the Obamas and Meghan Markle. So Bappa reckons they are owed around $1.5 million in unpaid ad revenue. They have just over 500,000 subscribers on The Fighter and the Kid, but each episode rarely gets over 50 or 100,000 views these days. And if you look at their most popular episodes, they're all like several years old. So it's no secret that The Fighter and the Kid is a dying podcast. And it's the same for Bappa's other podcasts as well, like The Golden Hour and Bappa's solo Thick Boy podcast. That's right, he called his brand Thick Boy. Just let that sink in for a moment. Most of the big episodes across these different podcasts are several years old. All the recent episodes barely scrape over the 100,000 view mark. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of views, but when you put it in context with other podcasts in the same area, like Theo Von's, Tim Dillon's, even Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer, Bappa's podcast universe is closing in on him. And that's even with regular appearances on JRE, who still gets upwards of 10 million views an episode multiple times a week. But even those other guys that I just mentioned, their views are starting to taper off as well. There are simply too many fucking podcasts out there. But that's not the whole story. Think about these advertising agencies that match up advertisers with podcasters. For years, they've been raking in the cash off the back of all these popular podcasts, but now that their views are tanking, so is the ad revenue, which means these advertising agencies have a smaller pool of money to dish out to all these podcasters. The advertisers just simply aren't getting a good return on their ad spend anymore. And because a lot of these LA-type ad guys are used to making big money, they've resorted to keeping more of the money for themselves and not paying the podcasters what they're owed. That's why I think this is happening. It's just another symptom of the podcast post-saturation point. The same thing happened in the music industry with large record companies screwing over artists. As the money disappeared, they just screwed them over even harder to maintain their bloated lifestyles. Just ask Kanye, he'll tell you. But there's a silver lining in all of this. The net result will be a whole bunch of podcasters exiting the space, leaving only the popular, sustainable ones to dominate once again. And I think that's a good thing. It's just natural selection. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll pin the best comment. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button and don't forget to become a subscriber so you don't miss out on my latest videos. I'll chat to you guys soon. See you in the next one.
But I'm just glad it's all over.
I'm fucked
and
up.
good luck to
I have
everybody else
problems.
out
I have to
there.
go to a therapist.